Hi everyone, and welcome to Mindfulness and Money. I'm Rhiannon Roseland. I am the founder and creator of Conscious Economics, and today I bring you a new module as part of our series. Now, before I even get started, I want to just give a gentle warning that the topics that we're going to explore today are sensitive, and I want to give a gentle trigger warning because of that. We will be talking about economic abuse. That's the theme of today's module, and our intention in creating this module is to help those who are survivors of economic abuse or those that support survivors of economic abuse so we can better understand what that process looks like as we regain our power and go through our recovery. I know most of you know me as a familiar teacher in the space of financial confidence and financial well-being. Today, I do want to share that this topic hits close to home. I am a child survivor of domestic violence, so I do understand the many layers that go into healing from a situation like economic abuse. Economic abuse is a form of control in which an abuser deliberately restricts access to information about money. They can sabotage employment or education. They can monitor or dictate spending or coerce debt, or even damage a survivor's credit score and financial independence. I just want to stress right before we get into any more of this that it is never the survivor's fault. These actions are intentional, manipulative, and abusive, and they're designed to limit freedom and create a dependency. So one of the things that might be surprising to find out is that economic and financial abuse is incredibly common. 96% of survivors of domestic violence experience some form of it, making it even more prevalent than physical abuse. And the other thing that's interesting about this is that it often co-occurs with emotional and physical abuse, reinforcing power and control in the relationship. Because it's often less visible, it can be more subtle, and it can be more difficult for loved ones around you or professionals to even detect. And economic abuse can trap survivors in unsafe situations, making it harder to leave when they don't have access to money, housing, or credit. Growing up, I remember watching my mom not be able to leave the abusive relationship that she was in because of money and the fear of not having enough to survive. It also affects survivors long after the relationship is over, so that economic abuse can linger with that coerced debt, or there can be other sabotage around child support or shared accounts. So it's often the last thread that doesn't get cut when we leave a situation. Survivors of financial abuse often develop coping mechanisms rooted in what we understand as trauma responses, which means that when they're dealing with money later after exiting a situation like this, we can have a lot of different feelings coming up, including fight, flight, or freeze responses, or we can find ourselves fawning around money or overgiving. These are not a personal failure. They're survival adaptations to abusive or unsafe environments. Many survivors experience a disconnection or almost a disassociation from money due to long-term survival mode. Thinking about finance can feel really overwhelming, unsafe, or even triggering. Our nervous system is often playing a key role when we're dealing with any important topics in our lives, including financial decisions. So when we've been in a stressed state for such a long time, basic financial planning can feel almost impossible. Healing doesn't happen all at once, and it's not just about a mindset shift to erase the financial hardship that you may be experiencing or someone that you know after enduring economic abuse. That poor credit or having to rely on social assistance because of what's happened is not something you can just think your way out of. So I want to affirm that financial abuse can make it hard to access the very tools that we need for healing. And this is why our work is rooted in this concept of financial therapy resources. At Conscious Economics, you can actually access some more of the resources that we create that are from this space of emotionally understanding the layers that impact us from being able to work with money in a way that is quote unquote regular when we've been dealing with different layers of these kinds of things. So before we get into giving any tips, I want to talk about shame. I want to talk about self-trust. These are things that we end up holding and feeling after experiencing economic abuse. And I want to clearly state again that this is not your fault. Economic abuse is intentional harm caused by another person. So that means that rebuilding and regulating self-trust and self-worth can be a very slow and gradual process. We're not talking about quick fix solutions and overnight mindset shifts here. This is about slow, intentional acts, and boundaries are a part of that process. First of all, understanding what your needs are, what feels safe to share, and where do you need to maybe redefine your limits on your own terms. When we think about financial empowerment as a form of healing after economic abuse, this is really what this module is here to support you with, and rebuilding that sense of agency. But it has to be at your own pace. It's not about jumping from survival to abundance overnight, and I'm not here to make claims that this is going to be some easy snap your finger process, but it is, like I said, about those small intentional shifts. Even just putting away $5, it's not about the $5, it's the act of starting to put something away for yourself and rebuilding things for yourself. I know there's so much shame in the aftermath of where somebody can be after experiencing economic abuse. So bringing in practical money habits, including just even journaling. What came up for you when you started to think about budgeting or you had to have a meeting around finance with someone? Notice what happened in your body. Notice if you wanted to avoid that situation or if you felt anxious about that situation. Just simple awareness at this stage can help understand where your nervous system is at so that you can start to bring in things to help regulate that and normalize that it is very common to have these kinds of behaviors happen after experiencing economic abuse. Saving $20 a month may not be possible right now, and that's okay. Healing looks different for every single person. So some practical tips that can support you in starting to rebuild your own self-trust and learn how to regulate your nervous system. So like I mentioned before, first of all, bring awareness to the fact that it is extremely normal and if not expected that your nervous system is going to feel dysregulated when you think about money or when you do any money tasks after experiencing economic abuse. So what does that mean? When I sit down to look at a bank statement or think about my budget, especially if I'm still struggling financially in the aftermath of what I just experienced, it is completely common to feel anxious or avoidant. It's common to feel flashbacks or memories or being in a very heightened state in our body. So the first thing that we need to do in order to help regulate ourselves is bring awareness to that and normalize that that is part of the healing process and that feeling is healing. So in order to feel what's happening, the first thing we do is we bring awareness when we feel and experience that trigger. For me, it would start in the beginning when I would think about budgeting. The reason why is because I remember growing up in my household that my mom could not leave her situation due to the fact that we didn't have enough. So budgeting became a source of huge stress for her, and therefore I also adopted that behavior. When I would sit down to think about budgeting, I felt as though I got exhausted, like I couldn't even keep my eyes open. I just wanted to go to sleep. So this is one example of a freeze response. In order to be able to overcome that, first I had to understand that that was a natural response for me, given what I had experienced. So whatever natural response is coming up for you, the way that we're able to regulate through those responses is bringing that awareness, and generally our breath is one of the best and most accessible tools to do that. So when you're feeling in a heightened state, or it could be a low state, like you feel like tired or exhausted or you want to avoid it altogether, coming back inward, closing eyes is always helpful when we're going inward and trying to experience the sensations of our body, and starting to do something that I call the box breathing tool. This is a simple breathing exercise that can bring us back into center. Generally, if we practice this box breath for anywhere from 6 to 10 times, we will bring ourselves back into a parasympathetic response. So what that looks like is a breath where we're breathing in for a count of 4, holding for 4, breathing out, exhale for 4, holding at the bottom for 4, and then again repeating, breathing in, hold, out, hold, in. If we continue to do that breath, like I said, for 6 to 10 times, focusing on the counting and the pausing on the bottom and the top, we can start to re-regulate ourselves. Once we're in a state where we're re-regulated, we can then maybe not even enter back into the task, but just take that as a win for that day. What you did was you were able to witness yourself feeling a response come up around money or finance, and instead of pushing through that or ignoring it, you came back into yourself. You went inward through closing your eyes, and you took yourself through that breath practice. That's a good start. If we continue to practice that, we start to build self-trust and confidence that we understand why we're being triggered, that we have compassion and awareness for ourselves, and that we have the tools to regulate ourselves. We don't need to reach outside of ourselves, but we have the very thing within us that we need. Those simple steps, and I don't want to oversimplify and say that this is an easy process. It is not, and I've been there. What I can say is that when we start to actually practice these simple steps, we can gain more power and independence around our finances and money. The other piece is to start to create a small journal. This journal is just a reflection of the thoughts that are coming up. A lot of the times when we're dealing with financial or economic abuse, we have financial or economic trauma that's lingering in our system. That means that we can wake up in the morning and have instant, overwhelming, bombarding thoughts around money, survival, how we're going to make it, how we're going to make ends meet. If we're responsible for children or other family members, these feelings can amplify and magnify. One of the things that's important is to start to get more comfort with understanding that those thoughts don't need to dictate your reality, and that it's okay to have them and it's okay to feel them. When we use journaling, we can actually thought dump, or mind dump it's called, where we start to write out all of those intrusive thoughts, getting them out of our mind and onto the page. Once we see them on the page, we can methodically go through and look at each one, and we can either see where some of them may have some grain of truth in them, or where some of them may be an old response to something that's no longer occurring. When we take these thoughts and put them on paper, we bring them outside of ourselves so we can separate ourselves from the anxiety, separate ourselves from that response. This little bit of space allows us to, again, come back into a space and place where we can be more regulated. The last thing is around small intentional acts. Now, I know that so many of the folks that are watching this right now who are survivors of economic abuse are not in a situation where they can start to save or budget or invest. It's really still about survival and being able to rebuild step by step. But small intentional acts, even putting away $1 a month or $5 a month, it's not necessarily about the amount, it's about the act, it's about the intention. When we start to think about the fact that we want to build habits, just like brushing our teeth in the morning, it becomes so habitual that you just do it without thinking about it. So even very, very small amounts, even if we're in a space where we're not even making it paycheck to paycheck right now, or we're relying on social assistance, even just the small act of having a space where you're putting a little bit away, even if it's $1, can actually start to form that habit. So I want to stress that you are not alone. There are supports available through consciouseconomics.ca and through our YouTube channel. You can watch a whole number of different videos that talk about all different layers of financial confidence and financial trauma that you can explore. And there's also incredible supports through other organizations like Women's Shelters Canada. And they're going to be joining us in this next portion of the module. So I look forward to seeing you back, and know that you are supported and you are not alone. Thank you.